Welcome to the Permarescue YouTube channel. My name is Paul Nimbarley and I'm your host for this video. And I'd like to introduce you to the first of a series of workshops that we're launching. This one's called Command, Control and Beyond. It's an introduction workshop. It goes for 1 day. And for those who haven't seen the first of my YouTube videos, which is Introduction to Permarescue, if you go to the Permarescue YouTube channel, you'll find it there, and basically it leaves off where we pick up here, which is a quote from Buckminster Fuller. And it's all about building a new model rather than fighting against the existing one, because they're much better at fighting than we'll ever be or ever want to be. So the idea is not to fight these command and control structures which are failing in their duty of care, as we'll demonstrate in this workshop. They're also a major part of driving the problems that are threatening us and our future, the future of the planet and our children's ability to live here. So these command and control structures are far-reaching. This fractals from international to national, where I live in Australia, right down to local, and by far there's more than what I've included here. The important part here is to treat risk as worst case scenarios until proven otherwise, beyond all reasonable doubt. We must do everything in our power to prevent, prepare, respond and recover from such risks to human life. And this is where Permarescue comes in. We focus on worst case scenarios to design the best possible outcomes. The problem is the solution. Fully understanding these risks and the cause and effect is essential for us to come up with the best designs. Should we not make the effort to understand this, then we automatically hand over our responsibility to others who assume command and control, and will suffer the consequences of that, or our children will. Unfortunately, it's well known it's easier to fool somebody than it is to convince them they're being fooled. So in the past, we never quite trusted our hierarchical structures, so we'd had canaries in cages, we took down the mines, particularly when the bosses told us to get down there, it was safe to do so. Today we seem to be quite happy to use our kids as canaries, which I find unacceptable. This is what leads us to create a new model, a model that's not hierarchical. We go into this in more detail in the first video, and we'll be releasing other videos in much more detail than what I'm going to touch on here. So it's a non-hierarchical model. If you have no knowledge in a certain field, then you have no say in that field, and it becomes very obvious if you don't have knowledge in it. When we were talking about people coming up with intelligent designs, the model can expand as rapidly as it requires, up to 600 people, the upper limit for individuality, in which case you duplicate it. So Permarescue is focused primarily on future trends and potential threats. I spent 3 years with Bill Mollison from 1995 to 98, and he asked me to research under his supervision natural, technological and sociological risks to humans and their settlements, and to design strategies to offset those risks. So what we're mainly focusing on to prove our point here is probably the worst catastrophe the planet has seen. It's technological risk, it's nuclear, and it's Fukushima Daiichi, Japan. It's been going on for some time now. It's well over 4 years. So we go over the cause of it: the tsunami, the earthquake, the tsunami, explosions, the damage done to these buildings. The fact that these buildings are so radioactive that no human can get near them. They use cranes to build these structures that you see on the right, up and over the damaged buildings without them touching, and then they send in a CNN film crew to Unit 4 and tell us that's what it looks like on the left there, when we know the building looks like that. So TEPCO is in charge of this monumental disaster, and it's 51% owned by the Japanese government. We couldn't have this conversation in Japan without me being jailed. It's against the law. It's under state secrecy, which seems to be the common thread of the risks that our children face, is these industries that have veiled us under secrecy, whether it be coal seam gas, mining and their secret chemical formula, to geoengineering and their secret chemical formulas again. So that we've known since the beginning of them playing with atomic energy that it had to be these particles, man-made particles, are not natural and need to be kept in a sarcophagus till the end of time. Hence the way they build their structures. So we go into the damage of what's caused from them spraying salt water, what's happened to the vessels. And yes, what is going on? There's obviously a sociological problem here, and if we look at the control, it's all about the money. What is sad is that a lot of people may be hearing this information and the seriousness of it for the very first time, where we have all these resources that are controlled, that should be informing you but are not. So if we follow the money and we see who owns 85% of the world's uranium mineral rights and who's invested $17 billion of their personal wealth into depleted uranium trade, and some of you may recognise this person. So a famous president, John F. Kennedy, once gave a speech regarding the conspiratorial nature of the hierarchical structures that we've inherited. He was shot, I believe, 2 weeks after that. Their favourite tool that earns them a lot of money is war. So we've lived through the horrors of World War I and World War II and the scars that we've inherited from that and the cost of that. The Tsar bomb. High altitude testing of weapons. A lot of these weapons were tested above ground, not below ground. For every 1 kilo of enriched uranium you get from natural uranium-235, you end up with 6 kilograms of depleted uranium, which they've worked out to be quite profitable, put into the tips of ammunitions, which they can distribute quite widely and have over Iraq and Afghanistan and the Gaza Strip. So we'll go over the historical risks and can clearly show the explosions that have been detonated all over the planet by various nations. The risk this has to our health is well documented. Kids under the age of 5 are 5 times more susceptible to ionising radiation risks. This little one in here that's yet to be born 1,000 times. So in this workshop we touch on all of this, and in the upcoming future trends and potential threats workshop, which will be 3 days, we go into this in much more detail, and the implications for policy, which has far-reaching implications throughout all the support groups, particularly in the various phases we find ourselves in, whether it's prevention, preparedness, response, or the recovery phase. Now, if nobody listens, then people will be receptive in the response phase, which is where permarescue comes into it. So we'll go into the map, its implications, how to apply it, and please bear in mind, I haven't made any of this shit up. I just spent 3 years with this very inspirational man who wrote this incredible piece of work that a lot of people have been trained from. That millions of people have gone through a 2-week course. It's just the movement has yet to acknowledge the importance of the last chapter, and permarescue hopes to change that. So with your help, let's see if we can get this message out there and get people taking this subject seriously before there is a catastrophe, preferably. Let's demonstrate this to be the model that does work.